I'm Sonia Mitomo.
And we are AfroSistas, our show with elevate Black voices, experiences, and cultures.
Welcome to our podcast, Speak Up with AfroSistas. So today we are it's a little bit of a continuation from the previous episode. We want to talk a little bit more about colorism. Our focus will be colorism. And we want to start with a quote. It's an anonymous quote that says, "Beauty has no skin tone." And I love that because it's true. I think no matter what shade of color you are, that doesn't define your beauty. Unfortunately, that's not what society has portrayed. But we know when within all Black communities that we suffer a lot with colorism. So we'll expand more on that and just discuss that further. So before we do that, Stella, what do you when you hear the word colorism, what do you think that means?
Yes. So when I hear the word colorism, I think kind of a preference between light skin versus dark skin.
Yeah.
I remember, I think when I was in high school, there was a big team light skins versus team dark skin going on. So that's when really I started learning a little bit more about colorism. So I just think about this differentiation between lighter people and darker people. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What about you?
So for me, it's similar. When I hear colorism, I think a preference or a superiority of one color over the other. And I think the majority, I know maybe there are some people or some communities in this world where darker skin is preferred, but the majority of the world, it's always the lighter skin or the whiter, the closer you are to white is more preferred. And that's kind of the beauty standard that, is portrayed. So I want us to kind of dig into what that word, and again, going back to that, actually, colorism, the word colorism, I feel like it's only within the past few years that I've become familiar with the term. Yeah. I know the meaning, and we all have the experience, whether it was here in Africa,
yes.
But the term is kind of recent to me. So, yeah. So the author and activist Alice Walker, she's the person who is often credited with this word or using the word, and whether it's out loud or in print. So in an essay, it appeared in one of her essays. It appeared in 1984. So I think it's called "In Search of Our Mother's Garden." So Walker, she defined colorism as treatment of the same race people based solely on their color.
So for me, it's interesting that we just recently heard about the word colorism, and it seems like it's a very new word in itself. Founded by Alice Walker in 1983, which is it's not even 40 years back, barely 40 years back. So it's a very new word. Again, I think it's been going on for years and even centuries, but people didn't have a word for it. And I think that when people hear colorism, they often think just something in the United States because it's a word that's been created here. Yeah. But it does happen all over the world, just that there isn't a word for it in other places per se, or there might be a word for it, but it's very different. Particular to those places. So Sonia, where do you think colorism comes from?
So colorism, I think it comes from European or the modern or Western, not modern, the Western world. So whether it was, in the time period of slavery or colonialism, I don't think that, it was, or it definitely was accentuated by that. And again, it kind of reminds me of that brainwash, that psychological, kind of, I would say it's a weapon to kind of divide us amongst our race, and just bringing whiteness and, you know, the superiority of whiteness, or the lighter you are, the closer you are to whiteness. So just kind of creating that divide. And unfortunately, just like a lot of things that happened, you know, during that period, we tend to keep that going within even our race. It's not just, you know, the Western world, but we're continuing that psychology, and it just keeps going from generation to generation. So. How about you?
I definitely think that it comes from colonialism. I definitely think that it's rooted in like slavery, and I think even in the research that we did, it actually says that lighter skinned slaves were assigned lesser harsh task. So they were often assigned domestic tasks, while darker slaves were forced to work outside the field. Again, both of them didn't choose to be slaves, but just because of the skin tone, one was assigned one and others. And the lighter skinned slaves were often sons or daughters of the slave masters. And often the moms who was darker skin or maybe fair skin was raped into into having intercourse, and had a child, and that child was mixed, light skin, and then will have those tasks to be domestic, or they were founded to be more intelligent. So it definitely has its root in slavery, but also in Africa, and all over the world, it has its root through colonialism, like you said. So European colonialism kind of spread the idea that lighter skin, again, thinking about like the Eurocentric features that we kind of talked about in our last episode, that was kind of the idea of beauty standards. So the closer you look like that Eurocentric beauty standard, the closer you're better.
Absolutely. And so talking about the United States, we want to discuss a few examples of colorism here. I think slavery, like you mentioned, it's key, because that's where it started, definitely here, when they brought Africans and put them in slavery to kind of divide and create that colorism mindset. So that, like I said, it has been carried over, and it continues. There are practices that even still continue to today, and it kind of just, I feel like it's been transforming from generation to generation. Different things, like for example, one of the things that are tests that you would do, I don't know if you guys are familiar, the paper bag test. So in the 19th and 20th century, there was something called the paper bag test, and it was used pretty much to determine in black spaces, and also to hire black people, which it's just crazy. So when you look at the paper bag, it's a lighter brown, I would say.
Yeah.
So if you're someone who had the same color or lighter than that color of the paper bag, you would have, more privilege, and you would be considered for hiring. You compared to someone who's darker, you would probably be hired. And if you were darker, like I said, you would not. So there were a lot of, things that this was used for, to determine if you would get that right. Because I don't really, it's not really a privilege, because we all need jobs. So why are you going to use a bag to determine whether I'm qualified enough to be hired and qualified enough to do this job well? So that's something that is it's kind of new to me too, because it's a part of African American history. But again, like I said, it's still happening, and it's still referenced to today. Like sometimes even within Black communities, it's referenced in a negative way to bully people. Like, oh, you know, people will say, oh, you wouldn't even pass the paper bag test. Like, look at you, you're too dark. Like, you're way too dark. You're not pretty. Things like that, which is terrible because we're continuing that language. We're continuing that psychology that's detrimental to our people. So yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, I think that especially that colorism is something that was kind of pushed upon us from the Eurocentric standard, but now we've taken it, the Black community at large has taken it and kind of divided its own people with it. So it came from like an interracial thing where, you know, it was to separate us, but then it's like now an interracial thing where we're doing it to each other, like, you know, separating job opportunities, separating school opportunities. Like I was shocked to find out that the paper bag tests were used in school admission for historical Black college. I'm like, this is supposed to be for Black people.
Yeah,
how
why
are
are
we taking a test?
Exactly, a portion of us.
Yeah, so it's, you know, we need to stop dividing each other. We need to learn to stand together and appreciate one another for all our differences, because we're not similar. Like, we might all be a community, yes, we're all the Black community, but it is our differences that makes us unique.
Yes.
So another example of colorism in the United States is the hiring practice. So Sonia touched a little bit on that, but so again, light skin were often preferred in hiring, and oftentimes when a light skinned person came with a resume, sometimes they would ask for a picture. So they will ask for your picture in your resume, and if you were light skinned, you were often given the job. A 2006 University of Georgia study found that employees of any race prefer light skinned Black men to dark skinned men, regardless of their qualification. So it doesn't even matter if you're qualified. It's just, they're just looking at the color of your skin and saying, oh, we want this other person other than you just because of the color of your skin. The sociologist Margaret Hunter, in her book Race, Gender, and the Politics of Skin Tone, also talked that Mexican American with light skin earn more money, complete more years of education, and live in more integrated generation, and have better mental health than darker skinned Mexican American. Again, it doesn't stop just at the Black community. It is becoming a worldwide issue.
Yeah,
where
it is, actually.
you know, where when you're darker, you're different. I mean, to me, it's just it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. When you look at like, because when you think about examples now, like, this is not something personal for me, but it is what you see. Like, even in terms of representation, when you look at you can look at entertainment, for example, actresses, you're not gonna see, like, a lot of them, a lot of Black celebrities, they're just, you can count on your hand how many have been, for example, called the most beautiful woman in the world. Like, that's an example. We spoke on the previous episode about pageants and things like that. Like, how we're so diverse. And the funny thing, actually, we were talking about this, the funny thing that is the extreme of the color spectrum in our race. I feel like the majority of us, or more people, are in the middle, but we don't see that. It's always like the lighter. They want to have, the Black person is going to be the lighter person, the one that, we're going to always the lighter complexion. And that's terrible for us, because it just reinforces what we were taught earlier. And again, another example that it still happens today, and it happened, in the past as well, is the criminal justice system. So you would actually see a study in 2011 conducted in North Carolina showed that 12% less prison time for lighter skinned women. So you see darker skinned black people in the United States have more, I guess, stronger or punitive relationship with the criminal justice system. So you see a discrimination in the sense that, you know, they probably have more punishment or, you know, lengthier or more rigorous sentences compared to lighter complexion black people.
Yeah. And going back to what you were saying about kind of examples again in our own community, oftentimes in media, when you look at movies, songs, things like that, or even you hear on shows like that, when you talk about the darker skin, especially for women, and this has hurt a lot of relationship between black women, like within black women, and also black women and black men, because the darker skinned woman is often known as the angry black woman, and the lighter skinned woman is often the most subtle, the more best behaved, and things like that. And it's like, that's just not true. That is such a stereotype that has just been put on black women. And again, it shows that like the black women are oftentimes the less protected by their own people. All over the world than any other group of people. And really, we need to learn to do better. We need to really learn to protect our women and stop this division among each other.
Yeah.
So, Sonia, is colorism only a problem in the United States, or is it worldwide?
No, so I think colorism is a problem worldwide. And I think it goes even beyond our race, because, you know, we're not going to focus too much on, you know, the white race, but even within them, I feel like there's like differences of shades. It might not be, I feel like in black people, there's more of a diversity. Like you'll see from, you know, almost looking like you're almost white to all the way, like we said, really, really dark. There's a broader spectrum, but it's something that happens even in Asian communities, in like South America, like we said, in Australia, like everywhere. There, I feel like there's a difference. As long as there's a difference, even if it's a slight difference in your shade of, you know, the color of your skin, I feel like there's a problem. You know, people, and I almost feel like it's human nature. You know, it kind of reminds me of racism too, which is, it's very unfortunate that, you know, we're so you know, built to seek and look at the differences and use those differences to show who, or to decide, because you're not showing, you're deciding that, okay, this person or this particular feature, or for this one we're talking about color, this particular color or shade of this race is superior to, you know, or better or prettier than the other one. So yeah, I think it's everywhere.
Yeah, it reminds me of like in India, how they have the caste system, and like it's a whole socioeconomic thing there, where the lighter you are, the, you know, richer, more like, I guess, more prosperous you are, and the darker you are, the poorer, the less prosperous you are. Like, it's based not only on color but also on a societal hierarchical thing. And it's like, what are we doing? And it's been going on again for centuries and centuries. So yeah, light skin, in our research we found that like light skin preference had been a common practice in the black community for generation, but not just in the black community. It has been a problem worldwide, like Sonia said, Latin America, East and Southeast Asia, the Caribbean, and Africa.
So I think it's important to, you know, the black community is so, you know, diverse, whether you're in America, Africa, Caribbeans, even in Europe, like wherever you are. So we wanted to discuss a little bit of, you know, about Africa and the Caribbeans too, because colorism is a huge problem there as well. So it comes, again, I think it stems for those parts of the world, it stems a lot from colonialism, like we mentioned earlier. So you'll have a difference. They just similar to America, I think, everywhere. The lighter skin you are in Africa, the more beautiful you are, or seen. The more beautiful society thinks you are. And unfortunately, I feel like that affects, it's in almost every country. And it pushes people to do harmful things and pushes them to an example of that is, you know, skin bleaching, because you're so it's such a big pressure when you're dark skinned to appeal to that beauty standard, and that goes for both women and men. So that's another thing too. Although, like we mentioned before, I feel like women do have a little bit more pressure. Men too have their experience with colorism, and they are starting to do more things like skin bleaching to appeal to that, you know, idea of beauty. So we know that, you know, like I said, it goes all the way back to colonialism, and that leaves the same psychological damage and effect on people from generation to generation, where you constantly see that, you know, dark skin is you know, considered as, you know, you're not pretty, you're uglier, you're and then lighter skin, again, you're more beautiful, and it gives you privileges, like let's just whether it's privileges you get to do, I feel like the same thing with job. It affects every, like, different areas of your life, like whether it's hiring, whether it is, you know, the social, the justice system, it affects you everywhere, even school, like literally everywhere, because again, you have to remember, knowing that those are the norms, including in Africa, that's what the beauty standard is. When you look at someone, the first thing you see is their cut. Like we're not blind. We can say all we want that, you know, we don't see color, but that's not actually. I actually don't even like that term, because we see color, but it's beautiful. Like just like the difference in our shade. Like when you see literally the color spectrum, red, we see, unless you're colorblind, you see those colors and it's beautiful. So we do see color. The difference is just that there shouldn't be a preference of one color over the other, one color being more beautiful than the other. So the other thing that I found really interesting, so I mentioned skin bleaching.
So that's something that again, women tend to do that because they feel like it'll be easier for them to become successful. When I talk about how it affects different, and that's success not just in school, it's in everything. Like you just feel like it's gonna make your life more successful, more. Again, you'll be looked at differently. You'll have more advantages if you are lighter. And also you'll find an aid, like it goes even to that level where you feel, and that also is something that I feel like I've heard. I mean, I personally haven't experienced, because, you know, I'm not married yet, but and even in dating, you would hear men say, oh, you know, the light, like the lighter skin you are, the prettier. They're always talking about the light skin friend, the light, like always. That's like the one, and you'll hear people say that, your light skin, whether it's sibling, whoever, is pretty. But you're not going to hear that often about, you know, whether you're darker, whatever darker shade you are. So it definitely pushes, imagine that affecting your psychology and your sense of self, and the fact that there are, you know, bad, I would say, like skin bleaching is a no. There are, you know, bad solutions available. People will be pushed to try those things and do that, because that is so important and it affects your life in such a big way. I wanted to ask you a question. So we're talking about Africa. How do you feel that colorism, I know you spoke a little bit about like your own family and your own life, but like how do you feel like colorism has impacted your life? So that's actually a good question. So I think colorism, I'll give you guys a little bit of a background so you know. So I'm in a family, we have different, diverse shade of colors. I have siblings who are lighter, who are a little darker, who are like me. I may have siblings who are mixed, and I also have cousins, all that. Like there's so many different shades. And I think one thing that I can remember that I noticed, because again, you realize these things growing up. Like it's not just when you become an adult that you become, those things become a parent. You pay attention as a child. One of the things that I would see, for example, like my oldest sister, she's very like, my mom is very like, and you know, I always see that has been my idea of beauty as well, and it matches with what society is. So I never thought, oh, I'm beautiful, my brown skin, my dark skin, or my darker than, you know, those two role models, women that raised me, that I look up to. I never thought, oh yeah, I'm pretty like them. I always thought they were more beautiful than me. My mom, I'm like, wow, she is beautiful. Like my sister, or you know, back then I was like, wow, my sister is so beautiful. Like I don't think I never went to the extent where I wanted to like, you know, think about skin bleaching. I wanted to be that color, but I did question in my mind like, oh, you know, how come I didn't come out like, you know, I didn't come out like my sister, like I wish I did, you know, lighter, like, okay, why is this you? And the funny thing, actually, she's the only one of my mom who's lighter, so it's like all of the rest are, you know, maybe a little bit darker. So, it affected my sense of, you know, my confidence in my beauty. But the funny thing to my dad is darker. So my mom's light, my dad's darker. The funny thing is because of that, it affected what type of men. I kind of created, you know, my ideal man in my head from an early age from that, from my sister and my mom. I actually like and wanted to date either a mixed person, I mean, like the French, or a lighter person. But so it wasn't necessarily, but that evolved over time because the thing that I appreciate, my mom, my direct family members, they never made us feel like, oh, you're ugly because you're, you know, you're dark skin. Like they loved us, you know, equally. But again, as I grew older, I think my environment also played a role in it because even though I started with that idea, it quickly became, you know, I don't have a preference. I didn't have a preference in color. And I ended up dating most of the men that I dated were actually not light skinned. So that, and I feel like that has become like my preference, but it also has to do with my environment because that was what I was around.
So piggybacking onto what you said, I think we all have preferences. The problem becomes when that preferences become something of like one person, like a lighter person is better, or and then the darkest person is like a negative thing. Like when we start to associate the color with kind of like a positive negative, that's when it becomes bad. But we all have preferences, and that's okay. As far as for me, again, it's kind of similar to yours, but a little different. So my mom is light skin, and then my darkest darker skin, and I feel like I'm kind of in the middle of that. And growing up, I had like cousins and other people that I grew up that were darker skinned than me, and I remember not knowing, making fun of them. So I remember like when I have a cousin that's very dark skinned, and we will call her like in French it's noirata, which is basically like dark skin. And we will call her that, and like all the time we're like, oh, noirata. And I didn't realize that it was like I was bullying her or being bad. Like it was something that even older cousin would do, and I would just follow and be like, oh, noirata. And I didn't think of anything of it. And as actually funny, so my cousin who's dark skinned, I thought she was very beautiful because her skin is very like one specific shade. Like it's just like really even skin tone, like really dark but really even skin tone, beautiful. Versus I feel like I have patches. Like there's like me too. There's some part of me that are like light, and then I have hyperpigmentations that makes it a little bit darker here, lighter here. Like so, I definitely feel like I'm a patch of different shades. But I always thought that my dark skin cousin was beautiful. But I know that other people. So when I was saying it, I was just following the crowd. But I know other people were saying it to be mean to her, to demean her. But I always thought she kind of held her head high and kind of was like, you know, like I'm beautiful the way I am. Like she didn't care. She'd be like, oh, whatever. And I love that about her. And I think that, we should continue that. And then I also learned an interesting fact, actually, that in our culture, so in the Bamileke culture, and again, I don't want to say that it's every Bamileke, like all the Bamileke tribes that do this, but I remember one time I attended a dowry, and the girl that was getting married was like getting a lot of things. So I just asked my dad, like, oh wow, she's getting a lot of things. And then my dad's response, like literally, this is my dad's response. Oh, it's because she's light skinned. Light skinned women get more dowry than dark skinned women. And and I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, in like the Bamileke, or like maybe that specific Bamileke tribe, they do that. Like they pay more dowry for a light skinned woman, and the men there prefer more light-skinned women. And I was just
I
like,
think that's all about me.
What? I was shocked. Like, I was like, that, like, I was even little then. I think I was only like a teenager, and I was like, wait, that's not right. Like, I knew it wasn't right.
Like, does that mean I'm gonna get like dowry? That's what I would think. Like, what?
So I won't get any dowry because I'm, like darker. And like, and then what kind of popped in my head was my cousin again, and kind of like, what would she get? Because like, I'm not even like, I'm not even that dark. Like, what would she get? And again, I feel like it's that brainwashing of, lighter needs to get more preferential treatment, needs to get more social economy, more value.
As a human.
So that definitely shocked me, and that like definitely put a print on me. Like for a long time, I was just very disgusted with the Bamileke men. And I remember like I would try to date outside of the Bamileke men actually on purpose, because I was like, and specifically my groups, because it was a Chong person, so I'm from Chong. It was the person was from Chong, and I was like, no, it's not happening. Like, I want somebody that's gonna appreciate me, my full beauty. And so I was purposely not dating men from Chong, because I was like, well, they're not gonna appreciate my value.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that is that's very interesting. I think, like I said, I think it is definitely for the preference, because that's also something that I heard a lot in Cameroon. We're both from Chon, so and again, like I just was like, wow, like my mom's family is very, very light. Like they actually they have a mix too. But they have people, like I said, I think her great grandma, or like they have people who look like they're either mixed, like just like my sister. A lot of people think she's mixed, but she's not. She's just lighter. And they have people who look like you could pass as almost close to white or mixed. So it's definitely it's sad, but then it reminds me again how those things, and it's about the language. Imagine. I wouldn't have, and that's where it comes, where we need to do better, because you have to think about how that is going to affect the child. Like hearing that, like it's going to affect your psychology and how you think, what you think of beauty.
So I am going back to colorism in now the Caribbean. So colorism is also in the Caribbean. So in the Dominican Republic, so the Dominican Republic was ruled by Haiti from 1822 to 1844, and it's the only island that was ruled by a black country. And because of that, they wanted to disown themselves from being associated from Haiti. So the rulers there wanted to establish a European identity. So they called the Republic of Dominican Republic, they called it the Caucasian Western Nation. And they would try to disown anything that had to do with blackness. So they would actually, would say that if you're dark-skinned Dominicans, you will be granted citizenship if you did not identify as black, but instead identify as what they call Indio Oscaro, which means dark Indian. So their preference for white, and their preference is for whiteness, and they're doing everything they can to erase any identity with blackness for the sake of social status, which to me is so sad, because like I think of Dominican Republic and Haiti are basically sisters,
Yeah,
like
they're
joined at the
like
hip.
they're joining, exactly.
Like, they're joined at the hip, and it's like there's such hatred between the two that it really breaks my heart. And I think in part, again, it goes back to this mindset, like like how your mindset is to want to identify with one and want to totally disown with another. Like, I feel like she embraced you because they were and they were also colonized by Europeans. So for some reason you're okay being colonized by Europeans, but you're not okay being colonized by Haiti because it's a black country
nation when you have blackness in
you. So to me, again, it goes back to that mindset. We have a lot of work to do. And then Haiti too. So Haiti has a lot of mixed races and racial mixing. So, and they will have different name for those Jamaica.
It's okay.
Not Haiti. Jamaica.
Yeah.
So Jamaica has different names for combination of racial mixing. So for a mulatto, it's offspring with a white and black. And I think even in America we use that term of mulatto.
I've heard that.
For white and black. And then if you're a child of a mulatto with a black, you're known as Sambo. And then if you're a child of a white and a mulatto, you're known as a quadron.
So all these names.
So there's there's a lot of names. And then if you're a child of quadron and white, you're known as a musty. And then if you're a child of musty and a white, as mustifino. I mean, I don't know if I can remember all that. But I'm sure people in Jamaica, because it's so ingrained in them, they do call all these different people by those names. And those treatment are shown in like the music, schools, games, where lighter skins have preferential treatment than darker skin. They even have games where they'll have brown girl in the ring, and that promotes a preference for brown skinned girls over dark skinned girls. Most of Jamaican women believe that the color of their skin is a deciding factor in finding a man.
Yeah, that's definitely.
And I think that's
similar
it is.
Which is it's unfortunate. And yeah, we really need to do something to change that. I'm shocked. I'm learning a lot of this, especially for the Caribbeans. I'm not very familiar, but also when you look at Brazil, I know Brazil is very diverse, but Brazil is actually it's where the world's largest population of African descendants are. I think we mentioned that when we were talking about Black unity, and unfortunately, that representation is not there. So you'll see there's a lot of racial mixing, of course, and unfortunately you see people who are closer to the European look. Those are the ones who are the elite in the society, and unfortunately you'll see more advantages when it comes to whether it's health, education, income. Between races, you'll see that there's a huge disparity, and the lighter skinned individuals have better or more privilege in those different areas. There's actually, I think the majority, about 50% of the population comprises of brown or mixed, people. But there's only about 25% from that group that is elected or that are politicians.
Oh, wow.
And to me, those few facts, there's so much more that we could talk about, but to me that brings the importance of representation. The fact that I think for them actually there's more emphasis on color within the race than even racism. So they suffer. I feel like they suffer a lot from like colorism within the black race. And it's really unfortunate because that's something that we say when we look at America, for example. We're saying, oh, even though black people are like 13% of the population, there isn't that much representation. Like a population 50%, come on, like there should be more representation. Like it should be more 50-50. It isn't close to that at least. So that's very unfortunate. But it also one other thing that it goes back, when you look at all these examples, you see a pattern where you see there's a divide. The psychology, the mindset that has been inflicted in us that we continue to enforce is meant to divide us. Like, do you guys understand? United, the reason they say united we stand, divided we fall, is to break us up so that we are fighting and that self-hatred just continues, and that we do not, if we're united, we are stronger. Exactly.
So kind of going back to what we talked a little bit about skin bleaching. So skin bleaching is not an epidemic. It's done worldwide, not even just in Africa, not even just in third world country, but even here in America, people skin bleach all the time. And it's become so detrimental because this is something that could potentially kill you. It's detrimental to your physical health, but also your psychological health, because like as we were talking about, like it makes you lose a part of yourself. It is, because you feel like you can't be yourself, you have to become somebody else. So the World Health Organization has reported that Nigeria has the highest user of such product, of the skin bleaching products, with 77% of Nigerian women use skin bleach product on a regular basis. And like, I'm just like, that's crazy. 77%. And just imagine the physical and psychological health that is doing on them, but what it's gonna do to the generation before after them. Because if you see your mom using such products to change her skin, and then you're darker, you're gonna want to use that product again. So it's just gonna be again a generation curse, basically. And then the other following countries in Africa are Togo with 59% of women using, and then South Africa has 35%, and Mali 25%. I mean, these are very astounding numbers. This is a big part of our population, and I'm sure if we looked at other statistics, we would find about the same, same numbers. And it's like, again, we need to really learn to appreciate our own beauty, appreciate the diversity of our beauty, because we're not all gonna be light skinned. No. And being dark skinned isn't bad. Like, being dark skinned is beautiful in its own right. And being light skinned is beautiful in its own right. And that's what we really need to work on. So
I think it's so unfortunate because you brought up a very good point. When you see, you do what you see. Like, imagine your mom's doing that. First of all, people who do that, like, your children is not gonna come out bleached. So like, your children dark. Your children are gonna exactly. So even if they, you have some, a lighter skinned children, like you're probably gonna have a diversity, just like we mentioned in our family dynamic. But you most of the time your children are gonna come darker. And what do you think that your child is gonna think? Your child is probably gonna think that that's normal and that's what they should do. When your child asks you, why are you doing that, Mom? Am I not beautiful? It kind of reminds me of people, I can say in all communities. I'm sure you'll find examples like that. But me particularly, I've heard whether it is my mom's generation or our generation, how they would always say, or ask, for example, when you have a lighter skinned child. This is a question that, some people will ask, which is so crazy. Ask if you're using, what kind of soap are you using on your child? Like, it's not normal for, you can't have a black child, an African child that's light skinned, or, oh, is your child, no, your child has to be mixed. Or when you see that there's a difference between the two siblings, oh, you have a different father, oh, this child, no, it's the same father. Like, what the heck, what kind of questions are those? What are you, so you're telling me if I tell you there's a soap I use, the fact that you even have that psychology, you think it's okay for you to bleach your child, that's terrible. Like, what are you telling, what are you reinforcing, what are you teaching your child? Because you're teaching self-hate to your child. If you think that the child, you need to bleach, whether it's younger or later, you need to bleach so that you become beautiful, that's crazy. So I think that is really, we really need to change that. What we've done, we have the power to change that, and it's just unfortunate because I feel like it just keeps getting reinforced and reinforced. So what I think it's a perfect way to segue into what are some things that we can do to combat colorism, whether it's here in Africa, wherever we are. So what do you think are some of those things we can do?
I think you hit kind of the hat on the money. Is like, it starts at home. It starts with what you see your parents do, what you see your mom do, what you hear your parents say, and things like that. So again, it starts at home. We need to teach our children to love themselves. Like, we need to teach our children to love whatever shade of color that they are, and to love other people that are of different shades, because society's norms are out there, and we can chip at them slowly, but it's still out there. So your child might go to school and hear their friend say something, or hear somebody be called something, but if you're teaching them at home that you are beautiful, your shade is beautiful, your hair texture is beautiful, and other people that are different from you are also beautiful, then your child is going to know that calling somebody dark skin, or calling somebody like you're bad because you're dark skin, ugly, or things like that isn't okay. And they're gonna try to stand up for that person, or not be part of the people that are bullying, at least. So I think, again, it starts at home. What about you?
So I think definitely another thing too is representation. So representation, we spoke about representation in the media. That's very important. I think that we need to take control of that and make that happen, because again, I think we do a lot of harm to ourselves. Exactly. We need more melanated. It's not just light skin. We need that because our children, again, that's what they're looking at. And trust me, when you ingrain those little seeds, it grows and it just goes all over the place. It's harder to kind of tone that image that your child has when they're an adult, if they started developing that from an early age. And on the contrary, society is already enforcing those things. So we need to take control and change that, starting with representation in the media, but also I think your environment is very important. And it kind of goes back to I think your environment, it includes what you do at home as well. What you do at home, and also like, for example, making sure that your child has a diverse friends. Like, I know maybe you have your children are more light skinned, but you need to teach them that make sure that they're around certain people. If you know that and that happens even in family, like I said, not in my direct immediate family, but I can think of instances like maybe extended family. You have to pay attention to what your children hear. If you know that I don't know, like their grandma or their far away uncle or aunt keeps inflicting negativity and keep saying stuff like, oh, they look at maybe your light skinned child and say, oh, you're so beautiful, and they never pay attention to your darker skinned child. You need to take the control of that and make sure that if you, of course it starts with you need to reinforce it, but make sure that they are in environments where they see a diversity, they see, oh wow, like, oh, she looks like me, oh, she's beautiful like me. We need to do that a lot more. And again, that's one of the things. The other thing too, I think we spoke about skin bleaching. Seriously, like, that is something that we need to we need more of like combating that. And reducing that significantly, like for real. Like, I don't know what we need to hear. We already know this is terrible for your health. We know it's terrible for your psychology, your the psyche, your mental state. So I don't understand, like, what do you, we need to enforce that. Like, we need to figure out a way. We need a I don't know what, it's not even brainwashing ourselves, because that is the reality. The reality is that, yes, you can have, people who are different, but that doesn't necessarily define whether you're beautiful or not, the tone of your skin. Yeah. So,
I think it goes back to, like, we need to, again, go back and take back our story. Let's not focus so much on Eurocentric standards, but focus on our own standards. What is our own standard of beauty? And our own standard of beauty is very unique and very different and beautiful, like, amplifying, again, all melanated skin tone, and not just one versus the other, and changing our language, right? Not saying that we prefer, darker skin is, ugly, or team light skin, team dark skin. No, it should say, like, all skin tones are beautiful. It should say we are a variety of melanated skin tone. That's all.
That is so true. So I think, again, we really need to start, again, it starts with us too, because this is all. You have to think, when you are projecting those thoughts, whether you're dark skin, like, whatever you are, we have to own and accept that there's a lot of self-hate, and we need healing from that. Yes. So it starts on working on you. You cannot expect your children or the next generations to be healed and be better at, loving themselves if us ourselves were not starting that. So, we need to each individually go through that journey. And on top of that, do things differently. You have to say, yes, you're beautiful. Yes, you're beautiful. Not just focus. Yes, you're beautiful. You're dark skin. You're beautiful. Yes, you're, even light skin. You're light skin. You're beautiful. But it doesn't just stop there. It needs to even go beyond that. Yes, you're beautiful. Give value. Those affirmation is so important to, bring that. And then again, like I said, representation. So that's very key.
Yes. So we hope that this episode has shed some light on colorism, and that the importance of amplifying all melanated skin tones, and that you are able to appreciate the beauty in different skin tones.
So it is by having conversations like the ones we're having now that we're going to be able to love ourselves and others, in spite, it's not even unfortunate, but it's how we're going to appreciate and love our diversity, instead of just, focusing on societal norm or, Western world ideas. That's really how we're going to be able to break this generational curse. Because like Stella said, I think it's a curse that we need to break. Yes. So see you guys on our next episode.
Speak Up with AfroSistas.
Yay.
Bye.
Bye.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell, and also comment and share.